Well, hello everyone. Thank you for joining today, our PMTV college essay channel for today's episode. We're going to talk about how to get started with the college application essay process. Before we begin, let me introduce myself. I'm Jeff Knox, and I'm an educational counselor at PrepMatters. I like to say that I help students and families make decisions about their high school education plan and then through the college admissions process. And I'm joined here today with by my colleague, Yala.
Hi, everyone. I'm Yala Best, and I'm an essay specialist. And what I do is that I help students to really show themselves in their college admissions essay.
If you hear anything today that you'd like some more information about, more details, feel free to reach out directly to Yala or to myself, or to me rather. Our emails are on the screen here, and if you like to tweet, our Twitter handles are available to you as well. If you have questions about this class or other classes or PMTV in general, then you can email classes@prepmatters.com. And of course, you're always welcome to call us at 301-951-0350. So with that, let's get started with today's topic, how to get started with the college essay. And if you are joining us again for this channel or for our other related channel, Wednesdays at 5:10, College Admissions 101 topics, then you know what we're about to do next. We're about to talk about this table on important factors in the decision-making that happens in an admissions office. And it comes to us from the National Association of College Admissions Counseling. That is the governing body that makes rules and regulations for admissions offices and college counselors, so that we can all move forward together and supporting students as they try to find the best college fits. And you can see that the essay in the college application process is near the top of this table. I mean, there's not much more that's above it. Grades and scores. The essay is the next thing after that. So it's fair to say that a lot of schools, and in fact it's more than half, place a significant importance on what you write, what you include in your application in terms of your own student writing sample. This table, and I say this every time, is not the secret formula for college admissions. There are colleges that don't accept any student writing. There are colleges that you don't have to write an essay in order to apply. And so where it says essay and it looks like it's ranked number 5 on this list, well, there might be some schools you apply to where the essay has no importance, and they're in that 19.5% you see. There are schools, obviously, that are test optional now, more now than ever before, and so the SAT or ACT might not be as important or even necessary in some cases for them to make a decision about your application. So the message here isn't here is your answer. The message is that you need to go and do the research for the particular schools that you're interested in to see what is their policy for admissions in terms of grades, tests, letters of recommendation, essays, and see how each college evaluates each piece of this overall application process. And you might be in a situation where you're applying to a number of schools with very different methods for how they make decisions about applicants. So our message to you is do your homework. Look this stuff up on their admissions webpage. It's pretty simple to find. And of course, don't be afraid to actually reach out to admissions officers who are now more available than ever, because normally they'd be traveling this time of year and they are not. And so you can email and call or even use their website to get a hold of them and ask your specific questions. And of course, no surprises here, grades and the kinds of classes you choose to take are significantly, for almost all colleges, the most important thing when they're trying to make a decision about your application. So that's just to help you to keep things in perspective and to remember that the essay is, if it is important to a college, it's just a piece of the application process. There are obviously a number of pieces for you to worry about, but for some reason, and Yala, you might have some experience. I know you have experience with this, but you might have a few comments about this. There tends to be a lot of perhaps anxiety or special stress about about the essay. Could you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, I think that a lot of times students want to give a specific response. They were like, what do I need to say in this essay in order to get in? When the answer is really just showing yourself, and, you know, getting to, well, if the question asks this, then what is the best way to answer it? Whereas a lot of times we focus way too much, or students focus way too much on the essay prompts, when in reality they don't matter so much.
Yeah, thank you. That's a great segue into what we're going to talk about next. And this is obviously related to getting started, because to Yala's points, and similar to what I was saying earlier about the table, sometimes students feel as though there is something, there's a secret that they need to figure out, and that secret is what college admissions are looking for, and there is often no specific list of things that they're checking the box as they're going through, certainly your essay, and so this might not be a satisfying answer, but they don't know what they're looking for until they find it, and you don't get to know that either. It's a little bit of the planets align kind of thing, where you have looked within, and you're going to hear a lot about that today, and have decided what you want to offer up as your message to admissions, and then all you can do is hope that the institutional goals of that college align with what you're presenting. But it would make sense for you to think, okay, I'm going to get started. I have an essay to write, and so let's look at the prompts, because you've been trained that way by your English teachers for all your life. And so, of course, prompts matter in a sense that they are there to prompt you. But this is not like an English assignment where you are given a prompt and clear instructions and a rubric, and even details about what kind of font you should use. There's a little bit of formatting when it comes to your college essay, but the prompts are really not where you'll find your topic or your message, and there's a distinction there that we'll get into. And the reason for that is when you look at the prompts available to us by one of the most popular application platforms, the Common Application, which has more than 900 college and university members, meaning that everyone who's listening here today who plans to apply to college will almost certainly use the Common App. When you look at the prompts for their main essay, this is the essay that you write that goes to almost all of the colleges that you apply to through this application platform. Zero in on number 7. Don't even worry about numbers 1 through 6. Look at number 7, topic of your choice. That's there for a reason. It's there to give you permission to write about anything you think is appropriate and compelling for your application, for an admissions person to read. And what Yala and I see so often is that a student will come in and want to know first, before they even know precisely what they're going to write about, what prompt should I answer? And perhaps they even think that there are some prompts that are better than others. If I choose number 4 or number 5, well, that is by definition more interesting than number 1, which feels a little general or vague. And that's just not the case. In fact, admissions officers will read your essay without even really looking at what prompt you selected. They just read it. And so topic of your choice really drives home the point that there's somewhere else you should start when you're ideating the topic and message that you want to put forth, and it's not the prompts.
Yeah, and I think if you really dig into whatever you decide to write about, you'll end up touching on those things in different prompts anyways. So instead of just focusing on one, you get to show them a bigger picture about who you are.
So this is where I say it again. The prompt was in you all along. It is you, right? You will do some brainstorming, and perhaps that brainstorming feels more like soul searching and introspection. But if you go through the process that y'all and I are going to take you through today, then it's very likely that you'll land on something that you feel is powerful and compelling and interesting and useful to an admissions officer, so that they have context about your identity, your experience, how you're going to contribute to a campus, that makes them want you there.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's not about getting the right answer. It's about showing elements of who you are so that the team of application readers says, I want this person to be a part of my community. And there's so many different ways for you to do that. And those ways are different for every applicant. So that's why it's really hard when we're talking in this format to give you concrete advice about topic and message, and you should pick this topic or not pick this topic. Of course, we can do that one-on-one, but some of the guidelines we go through today, I think, will help you guide yourselves to the right topic and the right message.
Mm-hmm.
Yala, can you talk a little bit about the fact that there's probably more than one essay?
Yes. So depending on what institution you're applying to, as Jeff said, there may be no essays, or there's usually a common prompt where you can, or essay, where you can write about just yourself. And then there might be other specific things that they're asking to get a more clear idea of who you are, a more well-rounded picture about who you are. So a lot of those questions have to do with extracurricular activities, how can you contribute to the diversity of the campus, which can be answered in a lot of different ways, and we'll actually be speaking about that next week. Why you want to attend the institution, and then sometimes certain schools give questions that might throw you off and want to just really see your creativity. So an example of that is you've just reached your millionth hit on a YouTube video. What is your video about? And again, they're just in different ways trying to get to know you more. So we'll talk about this a little bit later during the process as you're thinking about what's important to you, what's important about you. Some of the ideas that you may not use for your main essay may be useful for these supplementals.
Exactly. And part of getting started, it's so interesting. Many of you are probably here because you've got your pencils sharpened and your inkwells filled or whatever. Not that any of you will be using that, you'll be typing, but you're ready to write, or you want to write, or you want to know you can start writing. And so much of the work that's done in the beginning doesn't involve actual drafting because you're just not ready yet. And one of the reasons for that is mapping out the different topics that you know that you're likely to address in the number of essays that you'll have to write. So to the extent that you can, and this is something you can do right now, especially if you're a junior listening to us, you'll want to think about which colleges you might be applying to. You might not know exactly, but you might have some kind of idea, and do a little digging and see, well, what are the extra essays that these colleges ask for, or what they did at least last year. Many of them are asking the same thing next year. Some of them might change. There's no way to know that until probably August when they release the actual supplemental essays. But what Yala was saying earlier is really true. In my experience, there might be 4 colleges with 4 different supplemental prompts, but they're all essentially asking the same thing. They're all essentially asking you about the significance of an extracurricular, or about how you are going to contribute to the diversity on campus, or what do you want to study and why do you want to study it. And so one of the things that we like to do with our students, especially in the spring of junior year, and especially now if you have a little more time on your hands, because you don't have to commute to your high school at the moment, is to list out the topics that we know you're going to have to touch on in some way, and begin the process with each of those topics that we're going to talk about today. And so by the time you see the precise wording of the supplements, you have the fodder, you have the meat of what you need. The hard work is done, and then it's just, the clay is there. It's just a matter of sculpting it a little bit. And so if you're interested in doing a deep dive in any of those topics that are likely to be topics you'll address, then please come back next week and the week after that and the week after that. Yala and I will be here next week, Thursday at 5:10, to do a deep dive into the likely questions that you'll be asked about diversity, and likely questions you'll be asked about in terms of your own values. And then we'll do other deep dives in the following week. So please come back. And what will happen is, as you map out those different topics of supplements, then you save yourself from a common pitfall, which is using up too much of what you want in your main essay first. And then in August, when you see the actual supplements, because you say to yourself, well, I'm not going to work on those because I don't really know what they're going to be about yet, so I'll just wait. All of a sudden you realize, oh my gosh, I have 3 colleges asking me in 3 different ways the same thing for the extra essays, but I already wrote about that in my main essay. And now what do I do? Because that was going to be my pièce de résistance, and I don't have anything left over for my extra essays. So that's why part of getting started, it's so important to do the mapping out to the extent you can, and knowing that it's not going to be perfect, and you have to roll with the punches as things change for you. But so many of our students who start out that way early are very thankful down the road, especially fall senior year, when they've done that kind of mapping out. So planning ahead, obviously important and a big part of getting started. And planning ahead, to me, means that you are using perhaps spring of junior year, but if you are thinking in your head, okay, I've got these weirdo AP exams coming up, I don't know what to expect, and I really want to put my focus there, or maybe you're trying to keep sharp for whatever the next SAT or ACT date's going to be for you, then I could understand not including essay work right now. However, if you find that you have a little bit of time right now and you could fit this in, it would be excellent to get this process started now as a junior. If you're earlier than a junior, then I'm glad you're here and you're getting great content and great insight. And all we ask of you is to live your life in a way that's worth writing about, so that a year or 2 years from now, you're ready to dive in. I wouldn't wait any longer than the beginning of this summer to get started. What y'all and I see so often is the students who invest in this work in the summer reap the benefits tremendously in the fall when they waltz into senior year, and we both hope that you get to waltz in physically to your high school senior year, and they see their friends, and their friends say, oh, what do you think you're going to write up for your college essay? And then you get to say, oh, I've already finished with that. I'm just tweaking now. It feels really good. So plan ahead, and that's a pretty good timeline there. So Yala, you've worked with so many students, and I imagine that some of them have come to you and they feel stuck, and maybe some of these reasons resonate with them and with you. Could you kind of take us through what these 6 items mean?
Yeah, so I think one of the main ones is perfectionism. Like, people really want to start out with a bang. They want their first draft, the first paragraph, the first sentence to be just, mind-blowing. And they're sitting there thinking of how to word things and what specific topic needs to be addressed immediately. And it keeps them from just starting. And the main, as we've been speaking about, like, you just want to start. So another thing that gets in the way, as mentioned with perfectionism, is really focusing on a topic. Because you're like, oh, well, I have this idea, but it doesn't really fit in with this. So you stop and you just keep on trying to answer a specific question, even if other thoughts are going off in your head. And another thing, especially with, access to social media and to all these news stories about people who got into Harvard comparing a jellyfish to life or something like that, like all these interesting prompts, usually there's really no way of knowing that they got in because of their essay, but that is the story that is told. So people are like, oh, I need this kitschy thing to talk about in my essay, or I need to start this specific way in order to get in. When again, they're looking for you. So if you're not that kitschy person, you're not someone who can make these grand metaphors, then it's not going to seem authentic. And then we spoke about before, procrastination, just not get like, oh, it's not due for months, like semesters, months, so I'll put it off. When, as you'll see in a little bit, the process of writing these college essays is very different. So again, you just want to get started. And then not I know we all want to make sure, it's a lot of pressure, and you saw how important the essays can be. So you want to ask your teacher and your counselor and your parents and your cousin who's at this elite institution and your friend's sister who's at this other school that you like to look over your essays, and they're all telling you a million different things, and it's overwhelming and you're not getting anywhere. So you don't want to have too many cooks in the kitchen. You want to pick maybe 2 people that you really want to bounce ideas off of to help you get started. And as addressed before, it's a process that is all over the place, and it's not going to go exactly how you want it to go. So just breathe and start.
And there are solutions to all of these. And let's go through that, right? So with perfectionism, the student who cannot move on from a sentence until it's perfect, even if it's the first sentence. Remember the process. Editing can come later. Let it sit. Let that lame way of saying what you want to say sit for now. Go back to it later. Just get the meaning down in even baby language, and then move on, right? And it's always there for later. What y'all was saying before, if you're like, yeah, that's a topic, I guess it could work, but I really don't know, blah, 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 you're debating, just give it a shot, try it out. Because usually what happens is that through the writing, the cognitive work begins, and you actually come to a realization later, because you were writing about it, that makes that topic finally reveal itself. But if you just sit there percolating, it might not work out for you in a way that it could if you just do it. You just try it out, and then to y'all's point, it might be a topic that's useful for another essay you're gonna have to write anyway, because remember, you'll need more than one topic. I'm a former English teacher, and I know what it means to use model texts to help students understand the genre that we're talking about here, and in this case it's college applications, college application essays. But I've never, and I really truly, I'm not exaggerating, I've never seen a student benefit from reading examples of college essays. I've only seen it become a distraction or anxiety producing, because they compare and they think they have to do it that way, or they think they have that essay's secret figured out, and now they have to do the same thing, and it can be so distracting, and it makes the student try to adopt a different voice in some cases, which is painful to watch sometimes. So really, I think you already have everything you need to be the kind of writer you are. Procrastination, I mean, I was talking with y'all earlier this week, and I said, if I get to the gym, I know what to do. I will work out, right? The problem is I just don't get to the gym. I just don't, I'm not there. I don't go. And so, I mean, I do go sometimes, but with the essay, right? If you sit down and you open up the Word documents, right? Or you take the piece of paper to start the actual brainstorming, mind mapping, drafting, whatever it is, you're much more likely to make progress than if you are bopping around your day, knowing you should do it, but not physically putting yourself in the situation that makes it likely. Sometimes you just have to start. And for some people that sounds like an unfair piece of advice, but for a lot, it's simple but true. And then yes, too many editors, our advice is to pick 2, really, just 2 people. And generally one person who knows you really well, so they can make sure that help you make sure that this essay it is your voice, it's reflective of who you are. And then maybe someone who doesn't know who you are, so that when they read it, they're not superimposing everything they already know about you and filling in the blanks. They can tell you, what does it read like to a stranger or a near stranger, because your admissions officer is almost certainly going to be a stranger to you. And then it's a messy process. You can even see number 6, I'll just say, is intentionally, there's a typo there, and that to show how messy writing can be. And I hope you just all buy that. But the solution there is to embrace the fact that it's not going to look like this. maybe you recognize this poster from your middle school English class, where the writing process was shown to you in this neat linear fashion, right? You do pre-writing, and then you move, actually usually see like brainstorming, then pre-writing, and then you move into the drafting and the revising, the editing, and then publishing, right? And it doesn't always look like that, especially when we're talking about real writing. And this, for some of you, might be the first legitimate experience in real writing. And what I mean by that is that you don't have the English teacher expectations where you're told you may not use second person, you may not use I, right? You are going to be graded on sensory details. I want to see at least 6 sensory details in this essay. And in the rubrics that are meant to equip you with important skills, and I'm not trying to bash English teachers, I'm one of them, but this kind of writing, you have such free range that you can do what I like to say real writers do. You can use dialogue, you can have a 1-word paragraph, you can use an intentional fragments, you can really do whatever you've seen in newspapers, magazines, novels, whatever. And in order to do that, sometimes you start with the brainstorming, you go with pre-writing, you say, you know what, this isn't working, you go back to brainstorming, you actually get up to the draft, and then you say, wait a minute, this is better for another topic. So now I'm going to start over again, put that over to the side, and it's not linear. So embracing the fact that it's maybe not going to look like what writing has looked like for you in the past will be helpful as you move forward.
And also why we emphasize planning ahead at the beginning, because it is going to be a longer process. I know you're probably used to, with the 5-paragraph essay, following the prompt, following those few steps, and then being like, okay, this is ready to be turned in. But with the college essay, there's no clear, this is perfect. And then you have different schools that you're applying to, so they have different deadlines. So it's going to take you longer to get to where you want to be. And so you want to give yourself ample time to do that because of how messy the process can be.
And no matter what you're writing, whether it's a poem or an essay for history or a college essay, audience is key, right? You always want to be aware of the person you're writing to, and in this case, it's an admissions officer. And so if you're writing to a specific audience, that will inform your purpose. And in order to get our purpose identified here, well, we want to know what is the purpose of our audience, right? And in this case, your audience has a very clear goal. They're trying to enroll a class of students to join their community in the fall. And in order for them to do that, generally speaking, admissions offices want to know a few things. They want to know, are you going to be able to move from freshman year to sophomore year and stay? And are you going to be able to graduate? Are you going to do that in 4 years? And will you be happy by the time you do that? And that might feel obvious to you, or maybe for some of you, you're like, oh, that makes sense. I never thought about it that way. But the way they do that is by collecting data. And some of that data is from your transcript and your scores, letters of recommendation, the way that you engage with the extracurriculars. And for many, many colleges, as you saw at the table at the very beginning of this episode, they get that data from your personal reflection, that writing. And so the conclusions they can draw about you through this writing, if it helps them know that you can do these 3 things, you will graduate, you'll do it in 4 years, and you'll be happy as you do it, that helps them a lot. And how you show that to different colleges will vary, because colleges are different, right? What Dartmouth is looking for might be different than what University of Pittsburgh is looking for, where I attended, versus what Tulane is looking for, versus what Claremont McKenna in California is looking for. And that takes research, and that takes reflection, and that takes talking with people like your school counselor or someone like me or Yala. That takes doing virtual college visits at this point and interacting with admissions. But once you get that sense, you can better understand the kinds of things they're looking for. I was at a webinar this morning for Worcester Polytechnic Institute in Worcester, Mass. It's a great school. It's STEM focused. You can study anything, virtually anything there, but generally, if you're interested in STEM, that's a school for you. And they actually had a very clear, actually a little bit contrary to the point I was trying to make earlier, they had a kind of a clear set of qualities that they were looking for in their applicants. Now, this wasn't an essay webinar. This was about their general college admissions, but they like things like curiosity, innovation, hands-on work and tinkering, that kind of stuff. And then some of that might come through in the kinds of classes you decide to take, the kinds of extracurriculars you're involved, what your teachers say about you. But as you are thinking about your application package as a whole, and you see, this is what my transcript is saying about me, this is what my scores say about me, this is what my letters of rec could say about me, you might begin to see an opportunity for your essay, a role that your essay could play that maybe the other elements of your application haven't yet. And that will help you home in on what you want your essay to do for your application. And hopefully, it's going to fit in these categories. They want to know that you're college ready. That's going to help them know that you're going to graduate, right, and do it in 4 years. And they want to craft a class of people that are going to be members of their community, citizens of their community. And under the college ready category, you've got some things that you can do to express that you're college ready, and similar for helping them craft a class. Obviously, the sophistication of your topic and your message, we're going to talk about the distinction in a little bit. The writing quality, for sure, you know, obviously you want the syntax, the word choice, the language, and even the beauty of the writing to show that you are ready to take on the academic writing demands of college. Your ability to think analytically about yourself or about anything, really, the self-awareness and analytical thinking that's shown, that's expressed, that's demonstrated in your writing. And then the message, and I really look for this in any topic. So as you're brainstorming, we're going to talk about concrete brainstorming strategies very shortly. As you're brainstorming, I really, without many exceptions, ask students how their message is evidence that they're going to add value to the lives of others when they get to college. That people are going to be better off for having met you. And I don't see room for an exception there. I think that there's so many ways to do that. But that's, if I had to have a rubric, it would be that criterion. And then the harder to judge, but if you have maybe a couple people look at your essay, which every admissions officer suggests, there's nothing wrong with having someone give you feedback on an essay, the likability factor, and then and certainly the authenticity, that it's believable, that it feels real. So, Yala, if I know what my topic is, how's that any different than a message?
So the topic is one way of getting to the message. The message is really what you are trying to portray. It's the so what of your essay. So when someone reads your essay, how do you want them to come out feeling? How do you want them to think about you? What is that overall, what are the undertones of your essay that the topic brings to the forefront?
That's exactly right. If you had to ask yourself, all right, I'm an admissions person, and I've just read my this essay. And then as an admissions person, I go to the writer and I say, so what? You told me about this experience, this extracurricular, this relationship, this whatever. Why would I care? Well, we just told you how you can answer that question. And just to go back, it's right here, right? It's giving them what they want. I mean, this is the so what that they're looking for. And there are a lot of different ways to show how you are college ready and going to contribute to their community, right? But that's what you want to land on with whatever topic you choose to highlight in your writing. And there are a lot of different topics out there that can accomplish this. So, okay, let's pretend for a moment that you're with us, right? You understand what we're saying, that you get audience, you get purpose, you get topic versus message. You understand that the prompts are just kind of there, but the topic or message is already within me, and you want to find this topic and message. Well, how do you do it? How do you actually land on it? And this isn't going to be surprising. It's brainstorming for sure, but what are the concrete things you can do to actually brainstorm besides just sitting in a chair? Well, through experience, y'all and I have a few strategies that might be useful to you if you don't already have your own brainstorming strategies that you like. And here are just four of a few. Y'all, do you mind just kind of running through these?
Mm-hmm. So for the values assessment, what you want to do is write down a couple of things that you think are important to you, such as, extracurriculars, sports, certain topics if you're into politics or something like that, and then just really think about finding one word or a few words that show what value you're trying to show with that. So what is that being a part of this team say about you? Another thing you can do is interview others, people who know you, ask them questions that help to show you who you are. Because even in high school, it's sometimes hard to be reflective, right? Like you're like, who am I? I don't know. So you might need someone else to help you get to who you are, how people see you, what they love about you. And it's also a little confidence booster so that when you do go to write, you're feeling more confident in what you're writing about.
Isn't that essentially what you and I do in the first session or two where the student comes to us?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yep. We ask them questions to get to know them really, and then try to be like, oh, well, this seems really interesting. Can you talk more about that? And, try to get to the meat of what the students come in with. I've definitely worked with students who like, oh, I'm not special. And then you really work with them and you end up coming out with a really beautiful essay. Another thing, especially if you're having a hard time putting pen to paper or pencil to paper, is to talk out loud and record yourself. If you, just start thinking about, a memory or something that you love, and just start talking, when you go back and listen, you may find something like, that sounds really good. Or I talked a lot about that. Like, let me start writing this down. Or you can copy word for word what you said, or you can, come up with some topics based on that. But it really can help you to finally just get started if you hear yourself speaking about these different topics. And then again, take advantage of your resources. You have your college counselor, you have your teachers, and then you also have professionals like myself and Jeff who can help you to get to a starting point.
The values assessment is so interesting to me because I think it's a really good exercise. We're actually going to dig into that a little bit more in the next slide. And one of the things I do is some of my students who like this direction and they want to think more deliberately about their values and personality and skills, is we do assessments, and there are a lot of assessments out there. I have access to one that I use with some of my students if they want it, but there are others out there where you do these like inventories and these assessments about things like multiple intelligences and skills and work and productivity and personalities and all this great stuff, and they don't assign you or diagnose you these things, but it makes you think, right? And some of the results you look at and you're like, wow, that's crazy how accurate this is about me. And other pieces you say, wow, this is a lot of bull feathers here. I don't agree with this at all. But both are good because it makes you think about yourself and ask yourself why you feel that way about yourself. Why do you regard yourself in this way? And that thinking can help you land on the kind of message that you want to send to admissions. One other thought before we move on is, and I've heard to say this, but sometimes students feel like, oh my gosh, okay, I just listened to all of this, what you hear today from me and Yella, and I don't see how I can fit all of that into an essay. And I am so complex, and there's so much about me, and that's true. Everyone listening, parents and students alike, you are absolutely beautifully complicated beings who could not be distilled into a 650-word essay, but you're not supposed to do that. You are providing just a glimpse of one thing, and there might be 18 or 82 things that would be equally great to share with admissions, and one is not better than the other. You just have to pick, and you're just giving a sliver of a piece of you. And admissions knows that. Admissions offices, they understand that they're just getting a glimpse about one thing. The problem is that when some students try to shove in too many things, the topic and certainly the message gets muddled, and an admissions officer who's often overworked, overextended, and just reading it once for an impression is confused about what you're actually trying to say. So it's okay to pick just a piece of who you are, what your experience is, how your experience has changed you forever, and stick with that. So let's think about the values assessments a little bit more concretely. And let's just use this example to make a point about the kind of concrete work you can be doing to get started. What I'd like you all to do right now, ideally if you have a piece of paper in front of you, or if you can pull up a Word document or a Google Doc or whatever, and we're going to give you a little bit of time to do this. I'd like you to jot down, just a word or phrase that refers to 2 concrete activities that you're a part of, whether it's an extracurricular at your school or your club, or something that you just do for fun, like you strum the ukulele, whatever. Or it doesn't have to be activities. Maybe there are specific moments or memories, preferably they're from your high school years, that were significant in some way, that leap out to you already, and you know that there maybe is something there that you could tease out. Or perhaps an important relationship with a relative, a teacher, a stranger, whatever, that had meaning for you in the last years of high school. Or simply achievements that you're really proud of, or mistakes that you wish you could have avoided but you couldn't. And take just 20 seconds, maybe 30, and think about that, and jot down 2 from any of these categories. Just the concrete activity or the moment, the relationship, the achievement. Just take a little time right now. My hope is that for every student who is listening today, there is a parent sitting right next to him or her, and that parent is saying, do it right now. That's what he said, do it. And so you've got those 2 concrete activities, moments, relationships, achievements, mistakes, and then next to them, if you think about it in terms of like a table, you've got your concrete things next, and then in the next column over, think about values associated with these items, or emotions, or phrases that illustrate a change in you. One of the things that I like to see in an essay is that something happened, and it doesn't have to be a concrete moment or activity. It could be a gradual thing that happened over time. That's okay. But something in your life made you different forever, changed who you are forever, and you're happy about that. Or maybe a better way is to say is that you are more fulfilled because of it. Not necessarily happy about it, but jot down a word or a phrase that isn't concretely describing the activity or the person that you have a relationship with, but is that value that you now have, that way of thinking that you have now, that thing that you're going to bring to college because of it, right? You might be in soccer, but you're not necessarily bringing a soccer ball to college. What are you bringing with you because of soccer, right? And that is the message. And then once you land on the message, the topic needn't stay soccer, right? You might land on a value, a concept, an idea that you hold dear and is true to your being, but then you realize, oh, well, there are a lot of other experiences from my high school years that have contributed to this important thing about who I am. And sometimes when you do that work, then you go back and you realize that there are a number of topics you can use, and it's that kind of back and forth that gets you to where you want to be in terms of topic and message. So next to these 2 things, that jot those down. And this is just one example of an exercise, a very short exercise that's easy to understand how to do, but maybe takes time to reflect on. Normally when Jan and I are working with students, we don't give them 30 seconds to do this and say, okay, well, time's up, what do you got? This might be something that takes weeks. Mm-hmm. And maybe a student finds what they want, and then as we said before, they go through the writing, and then through the writing, the cognition gets them geared up for a different direction, and it can feel like that's wasted time. I poured all of this energy and this into this topic and message, and now I don't want to go this direction, I want to go this direction. Well, all of this work, it's such a waste. Well, you wouldn't have gotten here if it weren't for all of this work before. Mm-hmm. Even if you can't use this for another topic, you would not have gotten here. And many of us, myself included, we the act of the writing process helps us do the kind of thinking we need to do to get to the sophistication and depth of the message that is going to have the biggest impact on your application. So let's now say you've got your topic and message, you're happy with it. You know what you're going to focus on in terms of like the thing, right? Whether it's an experience, an extracurricular, a person, whatever. And you know the message about yourself, what you're going to contribute to a college community. But now what? What is the next step? And many of you were taught, well, now you outline, right? And which is great. And that's what I do with probably most of my students. But not everyone is the same kind of writer. So, what are the different ways that you've seen students move forward?
Yeah, so sometimes students will just, once we've talked through different topics and they've kind of decided on something that they're comfortable with, some students, I just give them time to start writing. And they will just, feel comfortable giving them 10, 15 minutes to just jot anything down. And then so that's more so skipping the drafting stage. And some aren't ready to really have concrete thoughts yet. So they'll just start putting all these ideas down on the paper, which we call a brain dump, because they're not stuck on one thing, but they're like, all these little things are firing off. And, one or a few of those things could be important for this essay, or as we spoke about before, could go towards a supplemental essay, but just getting it all on the paper. Doesn't have to be formatted in any kind of way, just ideas. And then
especially for the brain dump, this is where for the students who you put a pencil in their hand or a keyboard in front of them and they freeze, this is where perhaps these are talkers. And so having them brain dump talk and record themselves and then listen to it later and plucking out those gems. This is where that's a good strategy for the brain dump. But sorry, keep going.
You're good. And then with students who are still having some issues getting started, then, we can help with that, or you can find somebody to help you with that by interviewing, asking them questions about yourself and having them give some feedback could also help get some juices flowing there.
Very good. So we covered how to get started today with a lot of different angles. But just to recap, the big ideas behind getting started, it's not a linear process. Embrace the mess. You can finalize it later. You will ultimately get to where you need to be. I was talking with a student earlier today, and he's stressed about AP exams and a history paper. And he said to me, and I so relate to this, he's like, I know no matter what, the end will come. I will be on the other side of my AP exams no matter what. I will be done with this history paper no matter what. And that's what's great about deadlines. There are college deadlines. Let's see if they will be pushed a little bit down the road because of the pandemic that's going on. That's very possible. But no matter what, you will be done. So find relief in that. Trust yourself and know that no matter how messy it feels in the beginning or throughout, there will come an end, and you will press submit on that application, whether you like it or not. It's got to be done, and off it goes. Thinking is writing. That counts. The thinking part is part of the writing process, and Yala and I were talking earlier this week, and it's sometimes the largest part of the writing process is where you spend the most time. So I don't want anyone to feel like they are not being productive by thinking and brainstorming, but document it, right? I think the way thinking is writing is because you're writing it down, right? So document, no matter how inane the idea is or how unclear it is, get it down on paper, on your computer. I don't care, paint a picture, whatever, but get it concretely documented in some way. And then, of course, we talk about mapping this out, because it's not just mapping out the outline of your main essay, but there are other essays that you're almost certainly going to have to write, and so keeping track of those thoughts is important too. And then just start. just do it. That's easy to say, but I think we've given you some helpful tips on how to actually get started. And sometimes students just one time I said to a student, because we were really just not getting anywhere. And I said, if you just sat down for an hour and did this, you would have an outline, at least, probably a draft.
Mm-hmm.
You just have to sit down for an hour and do it. And it was so simple, but he said, you're right, I could get this over with in an hour. I'm like, you don't have to have a perfect, you just need to get to the next little step, which is a really crappy draft. That's all I needed from you. But when it became clear, oh, this is just an hour, it shrunk the what felt like a behemoth to him, and it was more manageable. So sometimes you just got to sit down and say, okay, I'm going to do something for an hour. Mm-hmm. And then authenticity, if there were a secret for college admissions writing, that's a secret. It's authenticity. It's being true to yourself, keeping it real, and writing honestly. Mm-hmm. It's more compelling to an admissions officer than fancy words or humor or any of what I call sometimes gimmicks, depending on how they land. But authenticity is key. Well, we hope that you found this useful today. Of course, if you have questions, you know where to find us. Mm-hmm. Yala's email and my email are on the screen. You can also tweet at us, call us. We're happy to answer questions. Obviously, we're happy to chat with you as well. And if you enjoyed this and found it useful, you can tune back in next week, Thursdays at 5:10. And we wish you all good health and stay safe. Mm-hmm. And good luck with this process.
Thank you for joining us.